Welcome back to another episode of the Say It How It Is podcast. I am joined and hosting with Ellie Boatman today.
Hello.
She returns. And we are joined by two lovely guests today. I've been going over in my head and rehearsing their titles over and over again. I kept getting it wrong. So we're joined by Kirsty, who is a functional medicine health coach. Come on. And Jen, who is an educator and newly author. Yes, Queen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Obviously, I came across Jen. We went to a women's festival and I watched Jen give an amazing talk and I was like, yes, I absolutely love that. It literally giving off this energy to be like, I just felt heard, you know? So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. You've come a long way today.
Yes, but it's worth it. It's lovely to meet you, well, properly anyway.
Yeah. Where have you both come from?
So I've come from the Gower.
And Cambridge.
Your family are from the Gower, right?
Yes, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what is, obviously getting into this story quite quickly, what was both your journeys as to where you are now? Because you're both in a little bit of different fields, where Jen, you're more educated now, I've got an author, and Kirsty, you now in this kind of hormone health coach lifestyle. So what is both of your journeys to why you've got to that point now?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I think really similar to a lot of women that I speak to that end up in these roles where they're wanting to support other women, it's through our own personal journey. So my journey was, I was sort of in my mid-20s, struggling with acne, chronic fatigue, brain fog, low mood, zero libido. And I was like, I'm not even 30, not even in my 40s. Why do I feel like crap? And went to the doctor. All I was prescribed to help with my acne was different types of hormonal birth control. I'd have like the regular blood tests and everything came back as normal. And I just thought, well, how do I feel so rubbish? So that kind of led me on a bit of a journey to understand my body a little bit better, because I knew nothing about my body, especially about my hormone health. All I sort of knew was when the period arrived, I literally didn't know anything around it. And just went on a bit of a journey and found out about working with my hormones, what they need, what I actually needed to do to nourish myself. And I think a lot of the things that I was doing, I was working a really stressful job, was actually working against what my body needed. And I learned that there's a difference between normal blood test results and what we actually want to see to be a thriving, optimal woman. And when I learned that, I actually learned that what my blood tests were actually saying to me was I have subclinical hypothyroidism, and that affects millions of women. So we're not ill enough to warrant thyroid medication, but we're ill enough that it's affecting our day-to-day.
So how did you, so is that something you'd have to request then? You'd have to request certain blood tests to be like, if you went, I felt under the weather, then you had a blood test, it wouldn't show up, so you'd have to request something a lot more.
No, not necessarily. So what it showed up on my blood test results as what you typically get with a GP is sort of like your nutrients tested, so things like ferritin, B12, which will show obviously how your iron stores are. And then they typically do like a basic thyroid panel. And what that showed on mine was that I actually had borderline hypothyroidism, but it wasn't bad enough. Like I wasn't ill enough at the time, but without an intervention, I would have eventually developed a thyroid condition like my mother has, and like millions of women develop thyroid conditions. You know, that's just one of the things that impacts us most. But a lot of us are struggling, not realizing that there are then things that we can do. There are things in our control that can help us.
So what sort of things then would you be advising people if they were? So you're saying that things that are in your control, what sort of things would they be?
Yeah.
I'm opening the door, Yana.
Yeah. And this is basically why I retrained as a health coach. So during this time when I was going through my health struggles, I was working a really stressful job in construction, so very male-dominated industry. And, you know, I was very stressed. Then I would go to CrossFit 5 times a week because I was a massive CrossFit addict at the time. I loved it. It was my mental stress relief. But it was actually then putting a lot of physical stress on my body that I wasn't then counteracting everywhere. And what I learned through my retraining was that thyroid in particular, as a lot of our other hormones, are really sensitive to stress. So I essentially needed to find a slightly different way to relieve my stress than just hammering my body at CrossFit all the time. So that was sort of one of the things. But there's a lot of foundational principles that comes into it, how we move our body, how well we're resting, our nutrition, do we have a sense of community and joy in our lives? There's so many aspects that comes into it, those kind of foundational principles of feeling our best.
One of the things I wanted to ask was, how does then stress, diet and lifestyle affect your hormone imbalance? Because I feel like I have endometriosis, and I feel like any sort of stress, my inflammation just goes through the roof. I've had quite a stressful few months, and things that would usually give me a flare up, but I've just become super sensitive to them, like exercise, food. Even now I'm sat here and I'm like, I am boiling. So I think that, like I said, if you have something of an inflammatory condition, and then any sort of stress just triggers it even more. So is there obviously an influence on your imbalance with your hormones?
Yeah, everything is so connected, and exactly what you said there, inflammation is really key to that. So, when we are under a lot of stress, there's a lot of things that's happening chemically in the body around our hormones, but it does then trigger an inflammatory response. So it's a way to kind of find those ways for all of us. And I suppose, what creates stress for us can kind of be unique, because it's what else is going on in our lives as well. That's why, I've got a love-hate relationship with the information that comes out on social media, because it's so nuanced, because we are all bio-individual. We are all so unique. So it's not always that kind of one size fits all. You've got to find what works for you in your life based on, what you do for work, what's your live-in situation. So somebody else's stress management isn't necessarily going to work for you. But also what I'm really passionate for is helping everyone understand what are the things in our lives that actually cause the stress that we probably just don't realize. For me, it was massively over-exercising and under-eating, because I was a big intermittent faster, which was really popular at the time, especially with a lot of CrossFitters as well. And I just didn't realize that all of that was just putting added stress onto my already stressed out nervous system, because I was working in a stressful job.
Yeah.
So it's just helping people understand, okay, what are those things that we don't appreciate that's causing unnecessary stress? There's certain stress we can't, we have to live with, but then a lot of us don't realize that how we live our lives is then extra stressful on top.
It's interesting you say about social media, because because I mentioned that my inflammation had been crazy, and I was like, I'm trying to find different ways to try and control that inflammation. So I tried the 16-8 fasting, where I was not eating for 16 hours and eating for 8. And I tried it for a week, and because of my lifestyle with exercise and stuff, I was like, no, I can't do this. I had a weekend of rugby, and I was like, I can't fast over the weekend. Can you imagine me playing rugby on an empty stomach? It's not healthy at all. I was like, I'm trying to be a little more open with my endo on social media, but some parts like that, I was like, I don't feel that comfortable then sharing it when my profile is kind of as an athlete, because I don't want to be encouraging people to then go and fast when it's really not a good idea for someone in my lifestyle. Whereas a lot of things I see a lot of things around diet, and I see a lot of things around fasting. And in my head, I'm like, well, is that the only thing that's going to help my inflammation then? Because I can't, that doesn't work for my lifestyle. That's not going to work for me as an athlete. So I can kind of understand how, I think there's a lot of good things happening on social media, and there's a lot of awareness, but there's also that side of things where it can get a bit misunderstood, can't it?
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people who are listening, if they're seeing information on social media, what to check in terms of who that person is giving advice, what to look for, how they're qualified, what, obviously you might not have a blanket response for this, but what would you typically say?
Yeah, it's really challenging. Probably Jen can probably speak a lot on this as well, maybe when we get into her personal journey as well. But for me, and somebody might look at my qualifications and say, well, you're just a health coach. And that's why I'm very careful about what I say on social media, because I'm not there to I cannot treat, I cannot diagnose. That's not what my remit is, and that's not why I trained as a health coach. I trained as a health coach to help people understand what's going on, because for me, there was a lack of education at school level about my periods, about what was impacting me, and then what was happening outside of it. So yeah, just ask questions like, where did you get your qualification? Yeah. what school was it? You can find, you can find out everything online.
Where are you getting this research from?
And like, I'll be really honest, like health coaching is not necessarily a sort of registered profession. So you want to see that person, what school they went to, and is that recognized by the the international coaching federations? Because you can, I saw it the other day. I was like, I get targeted adverts because it's the world that I work in. There was like a menstrual health coach qualification. And I was like, oh, let's have a look. I'm always keen to see what else is out there. And it was like, I think you get trained in 3 weeks. And it was like, I don't know, a couple of £100. Like, I invested thousands of pounds. It was like almost like a second degree, but I didn't want to go in and retrain as like a naturopathic doctor or anything like that, because I wanted to help people sooner rather than later. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask. Like, can I just, check with you, where did you get your training? And then, you can find everything on Google now. Yeah. So definitely, like, if it feels like you're not sure, just ask.
Yeah. And I think just to add on that as well, nobody should take medical advice from social media. No. That's not the place to go for actual medical advice, because it is so nuanced and you need to go to the appropriate place to get that. But I think social media is also attacked unfairly. And I think sometimes we forget why women in particular, or any marginalised community, goes to social media in the first place for all their health literacy. Mm-hmm. And that's because they're getting misinformation from trusted other more trusted, in inverted commas, sources, like their doctor. Yeah. So especially in examples of endometriosis, for example, then women in droves are heading to social media to find context, community, validation, and also to just understand options, not to tell somebody they should or shouldn't do that, because, unless you're a doctor in that particular person's life, you don't know their previous medical history. So there's just no way anybody should be giving medical advice over the internet. But at the same time, we have to have this broader understanding of why women are turning to it.
Yeah, I think you said that, like, I think the reason why if you use endometriosis as an example, the endo community is so huge on social media is because of like the lack of support medically. Yeah. And I think obviously we're all aware of, the years it takes through the NHS to get diagnosed with endometriosis. So I feel like people have nowhere to turn. So it's why then there's this huge support system around something like endo online. But I think it's also very individualized. So like I said, if something works for one person, I think they have to be careful that also maybe not that helpful to somebody else. Like I mentioned, the fasting. Mm-hmm. If you've got 4 rugby players listening to someone that doesn't really train or exercise and encouraging them to fast for their inflammation, that's not going to be helpful for their lifestyle. So I think I think you have to kind of be careful with that around that stuff as well.
Definitely.
Obviously mentioned about endometriosis. Yes. Also mentioned you're a new author.
Yeah.
So let's just dive into that. Well, I mentioned that I knew of you when I listened to your talk on endometriosis, and again, because it's something from my own experience, I was a bit like, wow, I feel heard listening to this lovely lady. But obviously your book is all based on endometriosis.
Yeah, so it includes adenomyosis and fibroids as well. I wish they could have their own book, but using the platform I was given. But yeah, it's called endometriosis, and that is the kind of focus. And I truly believe that it's the most comprehensive, inclusive and up-to-date guide to endometriosis and how to live with it. Because currently the stuff that's out there mostly doesn't even have the right definitions in it. And that includes medical texts that our future doctors are learning from. So yeah, it was really important to me that this was up-to-date and accurate information in one place.
I'm so excited to read it, because even though I've got the condition, I still feel like there's so much I just don't understand or don't relate to. Like, I'm picking things up all the time, but I think, is this legit? Is it just I'm learning this on social media? Because now I just feel like TikTok, everything is because of your endo, and like, is it or is it not? Yeah. So I'm very excited.
And it's all conflicting, isn't it? You can get something from one doctor, and then another doctor tells you the opposite, and then you go listen to somebody else, and they're saying something completely different, and it can be really overwhelming and confusing. So basically, I just created what I wished I had.
That was my question.
Doesn't exist. Yeah.
So what drove you to then want to create this book?
So I had to wait 22 years for my diagnosis. So the average is 10.
Sorry, hang on a minute. Can we just zoom in on that? 22.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And it's not like I didn't go to the doctor, because some people say to me, like, well, why didn't you go to the doctors in 22 years? I went so many times to so many doctors in Wales, across England, like, 'cause we moved around, like, and it was the same answer all the time. That's normal. Half of the population in the world has a period. Why are you special? You just need to figure this out. And that was basically my life for 22 years. But then I came off the pill during a lockdown. Don't really know why, just sort of realised I'd never had a cycle without being on the pill, because I was put on the pill at 11. And then, within, I think, 2 to 3 cycles, I was bedbound pretty much. And I had to use walking sticks, because if I tried to get out of the house, my legs would collapse and I'd just be on the floor. I had to crawl from the bed to the bathroom. Like, it was just horrific. And then I got my diagnosis, and I was like, oh, amazing, somebody's finally listened to me. And I had surgery with him, and he was a really, really well-respected surgeon, but he does cancer surgery. So very complex surgery. And he assured me that he could do this no problem. But he ended up missing a lot of disease that basically was endangering both of my kidneys. So I could have double kidney failure at any time. And so that was kind of the moment where I was like, okay, something's not right. How is this really respected surgeon missing so much disease? And that was kind of like the little seed of it. And at the same time, I set up an Instagram, endometriosis, and I was sort of started to talk to people, talk to all around the world. And I realised that this problem is so much bigger than me. I think at the time I was just so consumed on my own story and my own suffering, which is perfectly natural, of course. Like, I was in agony. But yeah, I started to realise that this is a completely global problem. And it started this obsession, pretty much. It was the only thing that got me through at the time, of finding out why. And I realised that it's not even taught at medical school in the UK. Endometriosis isn't, not in any kind of consistent, formalised way. You will get some doctors who happen upon it in a obs and gynae rotation, but by and large, it's not taught. So that's why we're getting doctors with misinformation still in 2025. And so I started to do like all this research, and you know that thing where every time anybody talks about endometriosis, it's we don't know enough. We don't know this. Yeah. We actually know a lot, and we know so much more than I ever thought we knew. They were doing excision surgery like in the 30s, the 1930s.
What?
Yeah, they knew. They knew then that the best way to treat it was excision surgery. And then somehow that got lost along the way. There are lots of theories as to why and how, but we've kind of almost gone backwards. And I thought we had just stabilised. But yeah, we know so much more, but it's just not filtering through into clinical practice and patient education.
Do you think then that, because I think it's a bit different now, but a few years ago I feel like it was something that was misunderstood, like you think you have IBS, or you think they just chuck you on the pill and all that kind of stuff. And do you think now that the community and the awareness is growing so much, and then more people are going to the doctors or going to see the GPs and stating what they think that they've got, and then that's creating this more of a backlog, because there's always been a backlog with the NHS around getting seen for endometriosis. Even like, you know, it takes my actual neighbour, funny enough, is got to wait 3 years now. She's had a scan privately. They think it's endo. She couldn't afford to go private, so she's waiting for the NHS, and they told her it's going to be a minimum of 3 years for her to have surgery, and she's got a very extreme level of endo. So even like that now, I think it's obviously so many people are now understanding more of what they think it is. So now they've gone, it's like just creating this kind of like list of more. Yeah. Even though I know it's always something people have always struggled with, but I don't think people themselves really understood until now. Now I feel like we have to fight for ourselves, going to the doctors and going to the GP to be like, no, I think you're kind of getting it wrong, if anything. Yeah. You know?
And that's hard. You know, we kind of end up going into medical appointments as if we're going into a boardroom or a negotiation.
Yeah.
You've got to prepare yourself, you've got to do your research, you've got all your stuff, you've got your questions you want to ask. And it shouldn't be like that. We're actually more afraid of being believed or not being believed than what our symptoms might mean. Like, that's just, I've never heard of any other condition where somebody feels like that. Yeah. I asked my husband, like, have you ever felt like that when you go to a doctor? He thought I was crazy. Yeah. He was like, no, if something's wrong, I go to the doctor, they listen, they treat me, I'm gone. Like, I've never had a medical appointment like that, ever.
Obviously, you mentioned your husband. He's a big part of your kind of journey, and like he's a big part of how you kind of present to the world, because he's alongside with you, and you mentioned just now that you did a talk with him recently.
Yes, yeah.
So like, can you just give a bit of insight how that works with your relationship, because I think it's really interesting, because also, especially in a male world, it's hard to understand what a female's going through if they're not going through it themselves. So how, obviously, when I watched your talk that last year, I think it was, and he was there, and you kind of made some jokes around like how each other. That was really nice. And I think it is really comforting knowing that you can understand. You don't have to be going through it to learn about the condition, because it's all about supporting somebody else.
Yeah, his life got put on hold the same day mine did. You know, he effectively became a carer overnight. He became the sole earner of our household, whereas I was the breadwinner before. So that was like, you know, his whole life was paralysed the same day mine was. And yet he doesn't have that community that I do to talk to feel validated. He has just had to kind of figure this all out on his own. Well, obviously together, but it's different. He's very much like, you're dealing with this, and I don't want to burden you with how I feel about it, because that feels really selfish. So it's really hard for the partner, whether that's a boyfriend, a husband, but it could also be a mum or a parent or a sibling or a friend. That person that's supporting somebody going through this also needs support. And yeah, he's been amazing, to be honest. He has been so willing to learn and to advocate for me, and just to try and understand what's actually going on, because in his own words, he knew nothing about it. And when we first met, he thought I was being over the top and a bit dramatic. Like, that's genuinely what he thought, because he grew up with sisters and his mum, and then he's obviously had girlfriends before me, and none of them had issues like this. So he was like, well, you know, why are you being a bit of a diva? And it wasn't until the second surgery that I had to have that he kind of realised how serious it was, because he thought, you're going to have a surgery now, you're going to be fixed, it's going to be great. And I was like, it's not quite like that, but okay. And then when we had the second one, when I had to have the hysterectomy for adeno, he was sort of like, oh, okay, this is real.
I can empathise. Oh my gosh, yeah. My partner at the time when I had my surgery was just did not. I laugh, but he just didn't get it. And he was like, we were waiting for my surgeon to come back, and he's like, I'm starving, come on, I want to go home. And I'm like, excuse me. And then literally when Dr. Griffiths literally started explaining like the extent of how much endo I had, and that I was literally at the stage of infertility, he was sat there like, oh, because he had no idea what endo was and how debilitating what it is. And then when he actually heard it come out of the surgeon's mouth, he was like, oh. I was like, yeah, like, you don't want kids and I'm too, mate, because can't give you any. Do you know what I mean? But it's actually mad that I understand how it's difficult for males to understand the whole period and the whole thing, because they don't get it. But I think then when I find it so refreshing when you actually see people's partners or family members, dads, actually invest in time and learning. I seen a TikTok video. It was a dad speaking on TikTok. Have you seen it?
The endometriosis
one. When he's just speaking, he's like advocating for his daughter, and he gets a bit emotional because he's like, I'm sick of this. Yeah. And I was watching, I was like, go on, Dad. Yes, I love that, because it's like you're choosing. We as women, we just have to learn about it and get, because we live with it. But as a male, you have to put time into actively seek it. So I know I massively respect that.
And we need male allies.
Yes,
isn't it? We do need male allies, because there is so much systemic misogyny and patriarchy. I know it sounds cliche, but unless men understand the extent of this and how much damage it can do, then we won't get the change that we need. We need them to be on board.
And that's like, I think a lot of women that I speak to, it's not until they've taken a partner or a loved one with them to a medical appointment that they kind of see the difference in treatment. And, you know, I was speaking to a number of ladies recently with endometriosis, and somebody was saying about they're considering a hysterectomy. And I know Jen has been, has helped a number of women that I know, like, to embrace having a hysterectomy. Like somebody said, like, thanks to Jen, I had a hysterectomy party.
I love it. No way.
I wanted to tell you that, because she was like, please tell her. But, you know, to the point where some women are, you know, they want a hysterectomy, because I think a lot of them, they've got adenomyosis as well. But it's then like, well, what about your partner? Like they were still having that question of like, well, we'd need to get your partner's permission. And I'm like, what? Is this Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah. No.
It's not enough that you want it.
People have been like some of the people I speak to, they've been told that they will not be allowed a hysterectomy, even though medically they have chosen and they wanted one, because nobody would want to marry them in the future. They might change their mind and meet someone and then decide they want children suddenly, that they will not have it unless their partner comes in and signs that they approve.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, if my friend told me I can't have a hysterectomy because my partner doesn't want it, I'd be like, right, I'm driving in the car, I'm going to go down there and tell him or her. Well, that's a red flag.
Yeah,
because it should be like
flag.
if your partner isn't like putting your health first. Like, I understand it must be hard from the sense of like, but there's ways around.
Yeah.
There's different ways that you can have a child or whatever, but like, surely your loved one's health comes first.
But I find that mad. Like this couple that we're talking about, like they weren't even married. Not that it should make any difference you're married, but you know, there's not even that level of commitment. You're saying that you want a boyfriend to come in and say he's happy for his girlfriend to have a hysterectomy. I was like, oh my God, that is actually still happening.
That's where we still have a long way to go with societal views towards women, though, because back in the day, obviously, our sole purpose was to be a wife, produce children, and that was it. Whereas now,
not anymore.
You'd be surprised how
no,
many
we're
people
not like
still
that
think
anymore.
it, though.
Yeah.
When I first posted about the hysterectomy party that I did, I had death threats, rape threats.
What?
People from all over the world.
Where are they? We'll go get them.
You might need some plane tickets, but
What?
It was crazy. My inbox was flooded with comments of like the most disgusting stuff.
Did that bother you? Like, did you allow that to bother you? Was it hard?
Yeah, it was hard because
sorry, I'm in shock.
When I chose, I say chose, but when you're at that point and you're in so much pain, it doesn't feel like a choice. It
you don't feel like
feels
you're living
the
anymore.
last option. And we got to a point of, okay, it's my life or this surgery because I could not carry on living. So it comes with a lot of emotion, even if you make that choice and you elect to have that surgery. But I had so many thoughts about it of like, oh, what if my husband changes his mind and decides he does want a child? And then these messages come in and they're like, your husband's going to leave you because you've like just removed the only purpose that you have on this planet. You might as well just die. Like, then of course, like it was sort of
makes you question
reflecting
everything.
the fears that I had in my darkest moments.
Yeah.
So for a while it did, but now it doesn't bother me because I still get them now, but they don't affect me now. I've been able to kind of separate myself and that kind of part of me.
It blows my mind that like you're going through something really difficult and you're having to make that decision due to your health, and people still find something as so.
I know.
It just blows. That's the downside of social media, isn't it? It's like you'd think that's something that you could only get support on, and then someone just has to find something to say.
But that's so important, isn't it? What you've said. It was like, it's not a choice. Like if you had your choice, you would not be
in that position,
living in so much pain that the only option really that you have is that. And you know, those trolls, that's exactly what they are not seeing that point, that understanding that perspective at all, because they probably live in a privileged position where they're not ever going to have to make that choice.
I guess the only way we can relate, I mean, obviously you have endo. I'm still learning a lot because of Fee, but we obviously come from quite a male-dominated sport, being in rugby, and even now do we get like trolling messages and stuff just because people's perception of a sport is a male-dominated thing. Like attitudes towards women are still terrible on social media.
And the thing with social media is it's actually just a reflection and an amplification of
100%.
society.
Yeah.
So we say, oh, it's a downside of social media, but these people aren't just online. They then go out into the world and they still have those thoughts and those beliefs. So it's not,
scary.
Social media may have given them a platform where they feel comfortable sharing those views, and they are getting very comfortable. They're not even using, private accounts anymore. It's literally their family on their profile picture and their full name. So they are getting very comfortable with this hatred of women and a woman who is no longer fertile. But it's also just a reflection of wider society. And that to me is the scarier part, that they're walking around and you wouldn't know necessarily. They would never come up and shout that to me in the street, but they're still out in the street and they're still having those thoughts. And that to me is what's more alarming, is that it's kind of infected.
Well, on Ellie's point with like being in a male dominant environment, it got to a stage I was like actively, purposely being more open around how I was feeling. Like if my stomach was hurting or my boobs are really sore, I actively say, well, I'm struggling with doing contact today because my boobs are killing. And my male coach would be like, or I'd be lying on the floor after training because I'd be absolutely exhausted because my pain would be so bad. And they'd be like, everything all right? No, my ovaries feel like they're actually going to pour out of me at any second. And they're like...
But they would have no problem saying their pecs hurt, or, you know, they just had a ball to the nuts, so they hurt a lot. Like, it's the exact same anatomy, but for some reason ours is
really uncomfortable and awkward. And I'm like, no, I'm done with this type. I'm like, no, this is something that, if you had a cold or you had something wrong with your knee or whatever, we'd be open to talk about it, because I feel like it's something that's invisible that you can't see, and because it's only happening to women, it's like, oh, can't really talk about it. It's like
my favourite one.
My ovary's going to rip out of me, so we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it.
You know, a surgeon said to me one time, he was like, if you ever come across a man who is struggling to understand this, tell him to imagine taking a stapler and stapling one of his nuts to his thigh and one of his nuts to his stomach, and then tell him to run a 100-meter sprint. And that's the pain that we're expected to sort of navigate with. He was like, tell a man that and they'll understand.
I don't know if a man would choose to do that. Really?
Not to actually do it.
No. I mean, that's what I mean. So I don't think they would choose to do that. So it's like the understanding to be like, well, that's the level of pain, because you're not going to actively go and staple your nuts together.
Exactly.
But I've seen quite a few pain stimulators where people are putting like TENS machines on. I'm like, it's probably like 10% of what we feel, you know?
I was going to say, we've only just until now, and we're like late 20s, do we have coaches now who are happy to speak about periods? Like, honestly, it's wild. We've only in the recent years now, we do like monitoring like in the morning to see like how your body's feeling, if you're on your period, stuff like that. That is very recent, and that is very basic. Like for years, male coaches would not even speak about periods. Like,
but surely it affects the performance.
100%.
That's
exactly.
it. Like, we don't have that education, do we?
Well,
so
no, that's true.
I literally, a few years ago, it became like a running joke where around my cycle, when I don't have a cycle anymore, like I don't have a period, but when I was in training, I would be called Satan. So the coaching staff would call me Satan, because on my monitoring, I'd be so purposely detailed. I'd be like, don't talk to me this morning, avoid me at all costs. And I would be so detailed on it for them to understand the level of like what I was struggling with. And then they kind of made it a joke to be like, oh, Satan's entered the building. I'm like, yeah, because I feel like I'm going to kill someone this morning. Or like, I'm in so much pain. I'm so bloated. But it then did come to a point, once I got diagnosed, that I had male S&C coaches. So in the gym, I'd be like, I can't do any core today. Like, and I'd be like, look at my stomach. And they'd be like, okay. Because I want them to understand that this is actually real life. Like, it's really hard to navigate. Yeah. I'm the one that's only officially diagnosed in the team. There are 3 to 4 other girls that really struggled around their periods, but openly exercise was something that would just flare me up all the time. Even to the point where I'd have extreme painful flares during exercise, and I'd be rolling around on the field like I'm in labour. And then these men are just like, what do I do? I'm like, right now you actually can't do anything. But I just need you to understand. I just want you to, I don't expect you to know, and I'm not mad at people not knowing. I get upset when people aren't open to learning, or like when I'm in pain, not being open to being like, okay, well, let's try this instead, or could you let me know how you feel around this,
or think you're making it up.
Yeah.
Just being dramatic.
Well, we had white shorts for a long time, and we fought to try and get them changed, because that was a stressful one to try and think about around our cycle of like
have you managed to get them changed?
They're now red.
Yay.
Yeah, they're now red.
I keep seeing these things online, and it's like, what's your everyday act of microaggressive feminism? And it's little things like that, like, or sort of, you know, when you're referring to a doctor, refer to it as a she or a her. So instead of always just defaulting to male. Yeah. And I feel like being open about our periods is almost like that. And it's those kind of little small conversations that if we just insist on having them and just refuse to be shamed by them, then I do think that can have a huge impact.
One thing I wanted to speak about is the comparison between endometriosis and adenomyosis. Now, I actually don't know a lot about adenomyosis because I'm still trying to learn so much about endometriosis. So could you give us an insight to what if people didn't understand what the difference was between the two? Because obviously I know there's a big chunk in your book.
So adenomyosis used to be thought of as endometriosis of the uterus. So endometriosis is obviously the cells similar to the cells that line the womb found elsewhere out of the uterus. Adenomyosis used to be thought of as just those cells inside the uterus, but we now know that they're two completely different diseases. So adenomyosis is where you have glands and stroma and cells that would line the womb, and they go into the muscular wall of the womb.
Right.
And it can really make it big. And the words they use medically are awful. They're called like a boggy uterus because it kind of goes a bit, it can enlarge to the size of,
boggy uterus.
Yeah, it's just, it gives me the ick. I hate it, but it is the word they always use. And they'll just write it in people's medical notes and not even tell them that they have adenomyosis.
What?
Huh?
Yeah, the education around adenomyosis is even worse than endometriosis.
So it's something that
a beast of a disease. It's awful.
So it's something that... Could you have the both?
Yeah.
So how would you... So I might go so many questions. So to find out if you have endometriosis, is it the same way that you would try and find out if you have adenomyosis? Does it come up the same? Because obviously like endometriosis is like adhesions. How would you... Does it look different?
So yeah, your uterus can look different. So the actual way to diagnose is post-hysterectomy and a lab sample. So that is...
For adenomyosis?
Yeah, but you can have a working diagnosis where it can be seen on MRI or they can look during your laparoscopy and they can see that the uterus is visibly different. So there are ways of diagnosing in inverted commas without having to do the whole removal.
Is it easier to see by MRI than endometriosis?
It depends who's performing it
and
who is reading it is the honest answer. So yes, endometriosis, particularly the deep disease and endometriomas, they are often found on MRI. It can still be missed completely or it can be kind of underdiagnosed by MRI. But yeah, it can be seen, and it's the same with adenomyosis. If you know what to look for, you can see you can find it. If you don't know what you're looking for, which most clinicians don't, unfortunately, then you're never going to find it. But yeah.
So I had an MRI last year as like a yearly check since my first surgery. And it's funny because the MRI wasn't available to me 2 years ago. That wasn't available to me to be like, go and let's do an MRI for you to find out whether you've got that. It was literally internal scan, surgery. That's it. And when I had my internal scan, it was, well, if I went off my internal scan, I wasn't having an operation because he was basically like, you're fine. One of your ovaries slightly shifted, but you really early signs. But then my surgeon was like, I still think we should. I think we can, and then lucky I did because he literally told me I was riddled. Yeah. So when I had my scan, then I found out that you can have a scan and we can see to check up whether your endo's regrown. The strand of endo that I've got, correct me if I'm wrong, because there are different strands of endo, aren't there?
So there's three types. You've got the deep infiltrating disease. You've got the superficial disease. I hate that word because it makes it sound like it's not a big deal, but it can be completely debilitating as well. And then you've got endometriomas in the ovaries.
So you're going to really correct me, but if it gets, isn't there a strand that if you get to remove, there's a low chance of it regrowing? But then one of the strands is if you get removed, there's still a high chance of it regrowing.
So recurrence is a tricky thing. There are instances of true recurrence, but they're probably lower than we think. So surgery isn't a cure by any stretch, but a lot of the time when we're looking at recurrence, what we are probably looking at is persistence. So the disease was there, maybe it was transparent because we know it can be transparent, so clear, it's pretty hard to spot. Or it could be just so tiny that it just wasn't spotted. So sometimes what we think of as my endo is back is actually my endo is still there.
Right.
And so we don't, I know I said earlier that we do know an awful lot, but what we don't know enough about true recurrence.
Yeah, because I actually got told that I had a certain strand of endometriosis that is going to likely regrow.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I can't give you any more information on that because that's all I got told.
It's a really tricky. You could put genuinely 100 endometriosis doctors in a room and ask them a question like that, and you would get probably 74 different answers or something.
Well, I'm going to Chicago next week.
Oh, nice.
My surgeon, Dr. Griffiths, is friends with apparently the head, the big endometriosis man in Chicago. So he's like, I'll set you up with him. And I was like, brilliant, because I can ask him 50 million questions. I've only ever met you, so I don't have to meet somebody else. And he's like, yeah, he's great. I was like, okay, if you think he's great, then he must be great. So I'm definitely going to try and
And a great surgeon will always accommodate questions.
Yeah, right?
Like, they like you to be engaged.
And
to
learn and be
understand.
open. Yeah.
Because otherwise you cannot give informed consent.
Yeah.
If you don't have all the information, you're not giving informed consent. And what we're having in endometriosis and adenomyosis care at the moment is we're not being given the full information, the full limitations, any alternatives. And so that to me is not informed consent.
So we did go off on one then, didn't we? But my point being back to MRI was that I had an MRI and then it was like, it doesn't look like your endo's returned. You got a little bit on one of your ovary, but you're fine. Now it's come up to a year again, and I had a letter literally on Friday. You've got a scan, and another scan coming up. So I'm like, oh, okay, great. And it's like, how reliable is it? Because if I go, like I said, I've had that internal scan, and I would not have had the surgery, and God knows what state my body would have been in if I didn't have the surgery. And like 2 years now, so it's like still a bit worrying for me to think now that I can have the MRI when 2 years ago it wasn't even available to me. I
think the thing is as well is to listen to your body, and I know that sounds like a really big statement and a bit of a cliched one, but go by how you're feeling, what your symptoms are doing. Is there any change? Is there any symptoms that are recurring that had settled down and now they're building back up again? Just take notice of what's going on in your body and let that kind of be your guide as well. I mean, I think 30% of endometriosis patients are completely asymptomatic. So obviously it's very, very difficult to say that to someone who doesn't have any symptoms. But if you do have symptoms and have had symptoms, track them, be aware of them, understand what's going on for you, because my symptoms could be completely different to yours. 100%. Even though to a doctor they'd say, they both have stage 4.
Yeah. But stage 4 for us could look completely different for how our lifestyles are.
Exactly. Exactly that. Yeah.
So, Kirsty, if people came to you with endometriosis or adenomyosis, what would be the process of how you would work with them?
Yeah, so I suppose as a health coach, is really understanding like where they're at. And as soon as I hear anyone that's got pain, and I think at the point of where people come to me is that they've been to their doctor and they feel like they've exhausted a lot of avenues, so now they feel a little bit helpless. So as a health coach, my main job is just to listen to what is going on. And I'm always listening out for things like there is pain. There is pain that's not just where you would expect to have maybe some discomfort with your period. There's pain that's radiating outside of the stomach. And I always say, we've got to work in partnership with your trusted professionals, medical professionals. And that's, you've got loads of different people on your team. So when it comes to working with people that maybe have had a diagnosis of endometriosis or adenomyosis and they or maybe are suspected, it's really looking at what are the things that you can do whilst you're waiting for, the medical intervention that you need. And as you mentioned earlier, sometimes we experience things and we're like, is that endometriosis? Is the endometriosis causing this chronic fatigue that I'm experiencing? Or is it something else?
Yeah.
And that's really where, as a health coach, I want to understand, okay, what else is going on in your lifestyle where you may be able to get some symptom relief, because it's not necessarily associated with the endometriosis, or where is worth experimenting. And, we're all amazing jigsaw puzzles that we've just got to be willing to experiment on ourselves. Like my personal experience isn't endometriosis, but I'm willing to experiment with lifestyle strategies so that I can feel my best, so that I can wake up every morning with energy, so I don't crash really hard in the afternoon. Like we all deserve that. So it's really helping them understand, okay, where are those really small sprinkles that we can just look for opportunities to experiment with certain things and see if you can start to feel 5% better, 10% better, because then when you feel a little bit better, especially around energy, maybe clarity of thoughts, you don't have that kind of fogginess following you around, you have more energy to fight for, advocating for yourself. And because there's a lot of health admin that comes whether we have endometriosis or whether we have other conditions that we don't feel that we're getting to the bottom of. There's a lot of ringing around. There's a lot of keeping track of things. Yeah. There's a lot of thinking that comes with it. So that's really what I'm passionate about, is helping women just feel a little bit better around some of those other symptoms that maybe isn't down to what's going on.
It's so interesting because I see so many people on social media being like, document your symptoms, write this, journalists. I'm like, I don't have time. I don't have the brain capacity to be. My to-do list is long. So then the fact that time I'm like, oh God. They're like, oh, did you feel like this last week? I'm like, can't remember. They're like, write it down. I'm like, but I forget to write it down.
Do you know, I literally just use my phone and put an emoji in on the calendar app.
Oh,
like
cool.
that's how I do it, and then they make sense to me.
Yeah,
That's all. Tracking just has to make sense to you, and then you can then convey that message. It doesn't have to be a like a separate journal or anything like that. It doesn't have to be a separate app, because it's bloody exhausting.
Yeah.
I have a question around when you work with women and a lot of them come to you and they've had this recent diagnosis. What are the common themes what have they been told before they've received the diagnosis? What have doctors said to them that they think they have, like misdiagnosis? Like what are the common themes that what they've been told? I know you mentioned when we were talking before we came on about IBS. Is there common things that they quite often get misdiagnosed with?
I think, and we did say this offline, I think most women that are waiting for an endometriosis diagnosis will be told that they have IBS, because a lot of the symptoms might be experienced in the stomach, bloating,
So like gut issues,
constipation, maybe changes in the movement of their bowels. So IBS can kind of seem as like, oh, okay, well, you've got IBS. But like we said, it's not helping you get to the root cause. And that's why I chose functional medicine as the route to go down for my training, because I wanted to understand what are potential root causes of like common things that we are experiencing. And, IBS, again, we have to be willing to experiment on ourselves to kind of see what does give us relief from bloating. What does give do we notice that there are changes with the movements of our bowels cyclically? Because that will happen, because there's hormonal fluctuations that impact our gut.
Wow.
Yeah.
You don't know that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I've been a whole journey with my own gut health.
Yeah,
but
because you had IBS.
Well, yeah, but God knows if it was IBS. Do you know what I mean?
That's true, yeah.
Like, I agree. I think so many doctors will just say like, oh, it's IBS.
And it's a
just
syndrome,
accept
isn't
that,
it?
don't you?
That's the terminology for it, irritable bowel syndrome. There's a
Yeah.
whole myriad of symptoms that could fit the bill. And it's often, it's like, I describe it as like you see a holding pen until maybe you either get then diagnosed with like an irritable bowel disease or maybe some other form of autoimmune condition, or maybe then endometriosis or adenomyosis. And I don't know, like I think for a lot of the women that I work with that have that, they then leave those appointments and then they're like, but I still don't feel like I know what else I should do.
So I know you mentioned some of them, but what kind of would be the warning signs if people's hormones were out of balance? Like what kind of things would they be experiencing to then be like, ooh, this could not be.
And that terminology now I think is a little bit controversial, isn't it? Because so many people say like this supplement will balance your hormones, this whatever will balance your hormones. So I think it's really understanding what hormones are you trying to balance?
Yeah. What are they though, if that makes sense? Like because I think again it's around education, isn't it? Like there's so much about ourselves we don't actually know. I think we mentioned it really early on in this episode to be like, you hear something and you're like, is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. First and foremost, most of us don't know what our hormones are and what they do. And there's over 50 different types of hormones in the body.
What?
And they're all communicating with themselves.
50?
Yeah.
I thought there was like 3.
Yeah.
Progesterone, estrogen. What are the rest of them?
Cortisol. Is that one?
Yeah, exactly.
Testosterone.
3.
Insulin, thyroid
Can we name any more?
hormones.
Oh my God, we are uneducated.
A lot of people don't realise that women have testosterone either.
Exactly.
Oh,
They see it as a
yeah.
male hormone.
Yeah.
But the reason I know that is like when I'm doing my presentations, I'm like, there are 50 and then we're going to talk about each of them, and people just like glaze over and I'm like, jokes. We're not really. But we know about the main ones because, obviously as women typically, and I honestly feel that this is only because of social media that we know estrogen, progesterone.
Or if you've been on the pill.
Yeah.
If you've been
Yeah,
given the
pill.
pill, you
Or
know
training.
because... Yeah, you
we
just
had
know.
to learn about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually you get told, well, this pill is combined, this pill is...
Yeah.
I feel like that's the only reason why genuinely I know about those two, because of all the pills I've been on around that. That's genuine, honest truth.
Yeah, exactly. So, hormone balancing, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Which of your hormones need to be balanced? Because, I've talked about my experience with thyroid. I would say that typically when you're getting your testing done with a GP, they will normally do a basic thyroid panel, which shows your TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone, and then they'll show your T3 and your T4. But beyond that, typically most women aren't having their estrogen tested or progesterone, and obviously it depends what day of your cycle you're on, and again, this is why women haven't been researched very much, because we're complicated. Our hormones fluctuate every day, and how that impacts us fluctuates as well. So it really, with me, and as a health coach, I don't do any testing or anything like that. So it's really understanding, where are they at right now? What are their symptoms? And what are the lifestyle strategies they can experiment with to try and get to a baseline? And if there's certain things that then continue to carry on after they've been experimenting with certain strategies afterwards, then you kind of look at, okay, what might be the route that you need to go down to work with your medical professional to have different testing done. But, you know, from my perspective, having been through it myself, there are so many things that we can experiment with to see if we can get some symptom relief ourselves, whilst we are typically waiting. Like, we're going to be waiting anyway. So it's you know, what can I try and do to help myself if we have the capacity? Because I think when we're living with endometriosis, adenomyosis, even other kind of autoimmune conditions, so many of us don't have the capacity to do it. And I think it's really important as well. A lot of us feel that then, because we're suggesting that there should be, you know, there's lifestyle strategies that we can experiment with, we seem to blame ourselves then. We blame ourselves for the conditions that we're experiencing. And I think, again, this comes down to a lot of social media, where you have to literally hook people in and say, you need to stop doing this. And that's when we blame ourselves, and that's not an empowering mindset to then move forward with. There is a lot
of judgment and shame with the lifestyle stuff. I mean, it can be life-changing for a lot of people, but for some people it doesn't help. They need further medical intervention. But there is a lot of shame, and I get messages from people saying that they've been told that they don't care about their disease, or they obviously can't be that bad because they haven't, you know, tried X, Y, Z.
The comparison, or that you're not doing enough, or you're not doing this. Yeah.
And it's a lot. It is a lot. So I
feel like
it
that.
To be a bit tempered with nuance and compassion.
I feel like that around the dietary stuff, because I feel like a lot of people are like, well, the best way to sort your inflammation is eat cabbage. It's basically
cut out everything.
I'm like, I can't. One, I'm the fussiest eater on the planet, which probably doesn't help. But two, I'm like, I don't have the time in my schedule to then be like, I can cut everything out and then live off leaves until I, like, how am I going to do a running session, or go to the gym and squat off barely anything? Like, I'm all for sweet potato, I love it, but I can't live off it for every meal, you know what I mean?
And do you know what, when I'm in like the worst of my flares, I am not gonna stand in my kitchen and make a nutrient balanced, delicious, colourful meal. I'm grabbing a bag of hula hoops and I'm going back to bed.
I know,
like,
but it's
it.
I get you, and then it's hard because people can. I feel like then it's like, oh well, you're not helping yourself
exactly.
though, and it is a vicious cycle. And I do get it, because it's like, well, will the hula hoops help me? Probably not. But I also have not got the energy to start whipping up some voodoo dish. I just can't. I can't do it.
And also, I do genuinely feel like what we see on social media of those recipes and stuff that you see, it's like taking us to the other extreme. We feel like nourishing ourselves has to look a certain way, and it doesn't. It's literally like, if all you can grab is a Baby Bell out the fridge and a stick.
I love a Baby Bell.
It's my like snack of choice.
And there are influencers who have got all day to make that recipe. I remind people that they aren't working a 9 to 5.
And also, what I want to see,
I'm
like, don't show me the recipe, show me the mess.
Yeah.
Show me what's going on in that kitchen behind the scenes.
How many takes does that take?
Clean up.
I understand that probably will drastically help my inflammation, but I kind of feel like I need to understand more realistic lifestyle bits that are going to actually help. I mean, that's what I mean. I don't think that's something that I could do.
And if it's not realistic,
do you know what I mean?
If it's not sustainable,
but then I'm like,
and if you don't have the capacity,
is this just if I can't? It just makes me feel when I see those things. If I can't do that drastic diet stuff, I just have to be like, oh well, that's all. That is what it is. Can't do anything. And I just might as well keep my beige diet, because
do you know what? Sometimes the smallest changes actually have the biggest difference. And I think it doesn't always have to be super extreme.
No, and it doesn't have to be food either. I think a lot of it is food driven. And you know, I noticed that a lot with people that I work with. They're always like, oh, what do I need to change in your diet? And I'm like, might not need to change anything. And it's that language that we use around it as well. And I think as women, we have grown up on diets.
I was about to say that.
So I don't know if that's like our natural.
It's around diet.
Yeah, so that's where we naturally gravitate towards. And this probably, for a lot of us, the biggest thing that we could do is actually slow down and rest. And that's the hardest thing. the hardest thing for women naturally to do.
100%.
I was going to say, because I'm an online personal trainer as well, and I only work with females, so I have loads of female clients. And I think for me, the biggest frustration is like the whole thing around diet and women and like everything forced down your throat is like, you have a bad diet, you're overweight, you're doing this and that. And then I ask them, I'm like, well, how much are you sleeping per night? And they're like, 4 hours. And I'm like, well, why hasn't anyone asked you that?
Yeah.
Or like,
That's
actually,
a huge inflammation driver.
How stressed are you at work? And they're like, well, actually, I did like a 12-hour shift yesterday. And then when I home, I had 5 hours sleep. And then I had to get the kids to school. But people were telling me that I'm eating too many chips. I'm like, right, okay, but you're not sleeping. You're stressed. Like, there's so many. Why does it first always come down to your overeating or your... It's always diet with women.
It is always diet, and I think there's a lot around like calorie deficit, isn't it? So I need to eat less and I need to move more. So what that typically then means is we will sacrifice sleep, and I used to do it. I used to get up so early so I could go to the gym, have my cup of coffee, do a really stressful exercise, and then not eat until lunchtime. And I'm wondering why my body is screaming at me. So if anyone is ever like, oh, should I get up at 5 a.m? And there's, again, you know, everyone loves getting up at 5 a.m. online at the moment. I'm literally like,
don't. We said that earlier. We were like, we are just not 5 a.m. girls. It's
No,
not,
but then you fucking woke me up at 7 a.m. and I was like,
okay, 7 and 5, a little bit different.
Yeah, I was going to say something's a bit
different.
more reasonable. To be fair.
no, genuine. It's funny that we're talking about sleep, guys, because again, running joke,
You love your sleep.
I'm on the monitoring system with rugby. It's so funny if I get less. I can't even function off 8. It's not enough for me. I've got to be in double figures, and no one takes me seriously because I'm literally like,
You have a
like,
chronic
you've
condition.
slept loads, and I'm like, it's not enough.
10 is my
10.
happy spot. Yeah.
Right, I'm so glad someone's on my wavelength.
Yeah, and I feel so bad. Like, people look at me like I'm really lazy when I say that. And I'm like, I have got
It's not just me.
Yes, I've got 10 chronic illnesses now, and I'm still being investigated for more. And I'm like, 10 hours sleep, I think is pretty good with all of that.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's people look at me and I'm like, right, I'm going to go to bed now. Right, it's 10 o'clock, but and I need to wake up, so if I'll have 10 hours,
the constant
3 minutes and 60 seconds sleep, right, but then if I just do this one thing now, I'll get 40 more seconds sleep.
I do the exact same
And then last
thing.
night,
Hustle culture,
before we went to sleep
Yes,
last night,
yes.
I was like planning the whole route to get here, and I was like, right, this is 15 minutes, so then I can wake up 10 minutes, and if I wake up at 15:15, honestly, I was working on that because my brain is generally driven off sleep. Like, that is this soul. I can live a little bit off being in a deficit, don't be wrong. Sleep, like, sleep is the biggest driver for me, 100%. And like I said, in rugby, on my monitoring, if I'd come in and I'd be like, I had 11 hours, and some of the stuff like, you had 11 hours sleep, and I'm like, yeah, you should be glad, because if I had 7, you would not want to be seeing me right now.
but I think it's glorified, and that's our society as well, isn't it? The hustle culture, as you just said. But how many hours sleep do you have? Like 6 hours, and I'm like getting up and I'm doing this whole morning routine. I'm like, rest is like great. Rest needs to be glorified. The slow life needs to be glorified, because that is nourishing.
100%.
Well, I am terrible for that, to be completely honest. Like, my brain just goes and goes and goes, and I'm still working at like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh, I'm so wondering I'm waking up at 9 o'clock the next day because my brain can't switch off the day before. But I think it's true that I don't know if it's like an athlete thing. I don't know if it's just a woman thing, but I constantly feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm like, I need to keep doing it. I need to be a high achiever. I need to set my standards high. And then having a day off and doing nothing in the house, I'm like, oh, I feel really uncomfortable. Yeah. Sitting on the sofa, I'm like,
as well, that when you're in like lower pain days, you're like, right, okay, I don't know how long this is going to last, so I'm going to do so much and do everything, and then you crash and burn, and then
but
you're
it's
like,
like 9
now I'm
o'clock,
in a
and I'm like,
yes,
100%.
It's like that fear of like, I don't know how long this lower pain is going to be, so I need to do everything now. Yeah, well, I do that so much.
And do you find that then causes a flare?
Yes. Definitely, because I've overdone it.
So as I mentioned really early on, like, I've had a stressful few months, and I expected my inflammation to be at a higher stage because I knew stress is a big trigger for me. But as my stress has decreased and I felt healthier and happier, my inflammation increased, which has been really strange. So like, I've been flaring a lot. I thought it would be the opposite, but I've started flaring a lot more. Like I said, any food, instantly reacting, and I'm go from not pregnant to 6 months pregnant in about 40 seconds. Exercise, when I started tailoring back into exercise after I had a few weeks off, anything I was doing, 6 months pregnant. Everything was just making me look, I was like 6 months pregnant. And I was like, how is this happening when I feel so much less stressed now, and I feel healthier and happier, and I'm a lot more rested, yet my body is doing the opposite.
Yeah, but how much has your life changed and how many external factors have changed in the last 5 months?
Yeah, I agree. But I personally felt like it was getting better. So why then is my body doing the opposite? You know what I mean?
No, I get it. I just think so much has changed in your life over the last year that it's just like compounding.
And the thing with endometriosis is you can do everything right. You can eat what everyone tells you to eat. You can get your sleep. You can do everything you're meant to do, and it can still flare. It really is. It is just a beast. And I think that needs to be remembered as well, that as good as all this lifestyle stuff is and can be for conditions like endo and adeno, sometimes they're still just going to flare with, like, no matter what you do. So nothing that you do, don't do, don't take, eat, don't eat causes that. Sometimes it just is. So maybe that's just why.
Who fucking knows at this point? Jesus Christ.
And I think we expect, don't we, that once we've like removed what maybe we're seeing as like the psychological stress or the things that are actually causing stress in the mind, that once that's been removed and we feel less stressed in our mind, that the body's getting rid of it as quickly as we are. Yeah. But our nervous system likes to hold on to things.
Well, doesn't that make sense? I was like looking down, I couldn't even see my toes. I was like, why is this happening?
It's kind of cruel for a disease that can cause infertility, isn't it? That it can make you look very, very pregnant. Somebody stopped me and asked when I was due before my hysterectomy. And I was like,
I got asked,
horrible.
I'm just swollen.
I got asked literally last week, I'm going to play for a new team, and they were like, what size kit do you want? Do you want this size? And I was like, no, I need to go up. And they were like, really? I'm like, yes. I have to go up in a size of my kit.
To accommodate bloat.
Accommodate my bloat, yeah. And I didn't actually realise subconsciously that I was doing that until I realised I was doing it. And then all this time I'd be like, everyone's like, oh, you're always wearing baggy stuff, or like, you're not that size. Why are you going up that size? I'm like, because you don't. Some days my shorts are sitting so much on my stomach, and my shirt is just stuck to me, and I'm like, feel so uncomfortable. And I didn't realise that was one thing I was coping with, using as a coping strategy by going up a size in my stuff. And I'd rather have 3 weeks in baggy clothes to be comfortable in that 1 week where I'd have bad flares than the other way around. So I think, again, as you just mentioned, as a woman that's having a serious bloat all the time and then looking pregnant when you're struggling with infertility, things like that, it's the last thing you need with feeling so insecure, because, oh my gosh, my insecurities about how I look, especially as an athlete where you're judged on how you look anyway, it's literally horrendous. I am now going into this calmer era. I'm trying to be more accepting of how my body looks because of the condition, but Jesus, that's fucking hard.
It is. I'm aiming for body neutrality. Like, we always hear body positivity and body negativity, but I think my body has been through so much and has changed so much and has given me so much pain. I don't think I'll ever get to body positivity, if I'm honest. So I'm aiming for neutrality and just being like, it is what it is. You're doing a good job. We're still here, even though we've got some bad stuff going on. But so I'm aiming for neutrality.
You both put a question box on your story. Have you got 1 or 2 questions that your audience asked you that you may want to raise on the pod?
I wrote them down. So.
Okay, great.
Brain fog.
Great.
I was going to ask, do you think as well, like everyone always says your brain's really linked to your gut? So like when you're having,
like that's one aspect of it. Like Jen said, there's so many factors that for that individual depend on what's going on for them. My personal experience with brain fog was a lot to do with my gut health, and I've got a very sweet tooth. So if I go a little bit OTT on the sugar and the alcohol for me, it shows up on my skin. And this goes back to what we were talking about, like, know your unique symptoms. So it flared my, it wasn't the acne, but it was a different type of condition called tinea, which like makes you just have like these white spots on your skin. And then this brain fog was layered on top of it. And I think everyone experiences brain fog a little bit different as well. Like I sort of like felt I was a little bit out of my body, just like walking down the street, not feeling there. But I focused a lot on my gut health. I did have a stool test done, which kind of showed there was an opportunistic overgrowth of a certain bacteria. And then you can treat that with, however your practitioner helps you kind of treat it. And it really did support me, as well as probably eating enough.
So
under
that's the
eating.
fucker seeing it.
Yeah,
so energy, so many women do.
Yeah.
Because it has been wired from a young age that less is better for women.
But my issue is I make myself so busy I just forget. So like I brought all my food today, right? But I'll sit here and pod all day, and then that'll still stay in the bag because I'm just going. And then I'll come to 5 o'clock and I'm like, shit, I'm 2 minutes behind.
I wish I was like that. I'm
know what I
always
mean?
thinking about food.
But
It's like, when is my next
It's
snack?
just-
When is my next meal?
But I think, like Jen mentioned, like how when you're feeling kind of good and you just get everything
Yeah.
done, and then you're like, oh fuck, I'm fucking 1,000 calories under. Do you know what I mean? Like it's an accident. It's not like something purposely driven.
And
but
then you feel terrible, don't you?
yeah, but the brain fog, genuine, this is me being really honest. I was like, am I getting early onset dementia at this point? Because there's some things.
It can be alarming, yeah.
You've done it so many times this weekend. You've brought up things of memories, and I can't remember them. I genuinely can't remember. And Ella's giving me a detailed description to be like, no, this actually happened, and I'm like, did it? Or like, and I genuine, it's
I also think because for so many years, because we've been professional athletes, food is like fuel, and you get told when to eat, and it's like really structured, and like it become, you lose enjoyment for food because it's like we constantly get told like, you're not eating enough, you need to do this, you need to do that. So when you come away from that life, I don't know, you've probably had a bit of a change with your relationship with food of like you don't have to like be told at 12 o'clock I need to have this bar or whenever.
Yeah, I also don't really need to care anymore.
Yeah.
So that I'm like, but then I still need to eat enough food to
do
survive.
need to,
Yeah, we forget, like, our brain is, like, made of fat. It needs that nourishment as well. And I'm like, what did women get told to do? Low-fat diet.
Well, they say, don't they, high-protein diet, especially isn't that the high-protein diet. However, processed protein flares me up.
Yes.
So, and I've only just realised it. So, like, all these protein yogurts, protein everything, I've only literally realised within the last 2 weeks, my stomach does not react well to them. And I am very fussy, and I've always struggled to hit a higher protein. So I've lived off that type of stuff for the last few years. And I've only, no wonder I'm looking massive 24/7. And only now I've stopped, literally the last 2 weeks, I've stopped any processed protein. The only thing I will have is like protein powder now and again just to top me up. Other than that, I won't eat.
Have you noticed a change?
Yeah, I have, yeah. But surprisingly, and I'm like, is that linked to that? Because I've literally removed that kind of processed protein. So that's been one for me. I'm like, wow, I wish I knew that sooner.
Yeah, it is.
But you know it now.
Yeah, sorry, right. One of the questions.
So
we love a tangent.
We have actually covered quite a lot of the
Okay,
ones that,
great.
like, naturally, but there was some around medical gaslighting
Yeah.
and lots of sort of why does it exist and why are we still not being listened to, even though we're having like conversations like this. Somebody was asking why is it not sort of changing in the doctor's office. So I would say, yeah, those are kind of the main ones that we haven't covered.
And how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
'Cause that's a big part of your book too, isn't it?
Yeah. Medical gaslighting is, I think, part of most women's and marginalised communities' health journeys anyway. I think it is a question that its answer is millennia old. Our health system is founded on principles from ancient Greece, so thousands of years ago. And it has had misogyny and patriarchy baked into it from that date. And so it is very, very difficult to unpick that 2,000 odd years later. But our current medical system, the NHS that we have here, was designed by men, for male bodies.
Do they not realise women exist or what?
No, well, they
we're half
saw
the population.
us as inferior
brought them
male
in.
bodies. That was genuinely how women were viewed for a very, very long time. We were deformed male bodies, inferior male bodies. All of these words are used throughout history to describe women, or just smaller versions of men, which we now know is just not true in any way. But I saw something online the other day, and it said the song Baby Got Back is older than the requirement for women to be included in medical trials. So that's how recent it is that women have been included in medical trials. And it's only at certain stages, so that it's not in every single medical trial. And so it's this really complex, multi-layered thing where it's individual biases, but it's also systemic as well. So yeah, you do get a couple of doctors who are just assholes and probably shouldn't be dealing with patients. Like, you know, you just get some that say horrific things, but you also get the ones who are just doing what they've been taught.
Yeah.
So saying painful periods is normal, if they were taught that at medical school, of course they're going to pass that information on. If they're taught,
How are they to know any different?
exactly, you don't know what you don't know. And if they're taught that a hysterectomy is the final cure for endometriosis, we know it's not. But if they're taught that, then of course they're going to pass that on. It's not done with malice or sort of their inherent misogyny. It's just because that's what they were taught. And so it's so complicated, and to unpick it and to understand it is such a huge, huge question. But I do think we're making progress. And I think a lot of that is coming from patients sort of driving this change. I see patients setting up new charities, patients doing, going back to university, doing research, all of this stuff. But it does seem to be coming from the patient. So it would be nice if the medical institutions would jump on board a bit more. But they are starting to. But you've got to remember these are run by predominantly older white males who are very, very set in their ways. Even at Cambridge, the work I do with the clinical school there to get endometriosis on the curriculum, we had pushback of, why do we need to do this? Well, this is very niche. This is very why would we invest here instead of somewhere else? And so it is changing, but it's going to be slow because it's thousands of years old.
I just think, imagine if there was a condition that affected men this badly in the news, the difference with media headlines and everything. It would be a massive scandal.
They'd have cured it. Yeah. It wouldn't. So endo is technically 165 years old this year. So that's when it was first documented, was 165 years ago. But there's stuff in ancient Egyptian papyrus scrolls that pretty much describes it. So this condition has been around for eternity.
Yeah, because it's not something that you just
and we still don't have a cure. We still don't know what causes it. If that was a man, and if there was a disease that made it so painful for a man to have sex,
oh God, it'd be gone.
The funding and the investment that would go into that would be phenomenal. Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, even with Viagra, erectile dysfunction, the amount of funding that goes into that eclipses endometriosis funding. It's not even comparable. So yeah, it wouldn't exist. we'd have eradicated it a long time ago.
And I think it comes back to that definition of hysteria, isn't it? When you learn about the definition of when women were struggling with something of the womb, and it's that's where the term hysteria sort of came from. And I think that's lingered. Men go to the doctor's office. There was an example, a client of mine who had endometriosis tell me about, she sort of said to her husband, I think you should go to the doctor, you've not been feeling well. He walked in, he gets what blood test do you want? Yeah, of course we'll run it. So I don't know if there's this longer term view that men don't go to the doctors unless it's really bad, whereas women are hysterical, so they go.
Women are dramatic.
Women are overly emotional, they're dramatic, they're over the top, but men are seen as stoic, they're seen as brave, they're seen as strong. And so if they're going into the doctor, then they must be bad.
Yeah. I'm just going to put this out there, but I've seen men with a cold. Yeah. So if a man, and I'm if you suffered with just a period alone, I think you find it really damn hard. So just quickly, if considering everything that Jen you've gone through with your own experience with your own health, and we talk about the medical gaslighting, what if you could describe how you'd like that to change, considering your own experience, what would you wish to happen?
I think there just needs to be more compassion back in medicine. As we have expanded our knowledge exponentially over the human body, not necessarily the female one, but the human one, we've compartmentalized it as these organs in these different systems, and there's a complete sort of almost lapse of remembering that they're all one person. Actually, they aren't just these collection of cells. We're a human and we have a life. And I think I would like to see more compassion brought back into medicine, and just that doesn't actually cost anything either. We always say, there's no funding. There's it does not cost anything to just be nice. You can say the same information, just say it as if you're talking to a human, not just a patient. And it's a really tricky one in terms of the medical gaslighting. I would just like to see women being believed. At its most basic level, just believe us, because it should not have taken me 22 years and losing organs and permanent organ damage on others to have a diagnosis of something that actually, when I was 11 years old, my mum told the doctor, I think that's what it is, because she had it. So she took me at 11 and said, I have endometriosis. This is what I think this is. And she was made to feel like she was the hysterical mum.
Yeah.
The hysteria. She was kind of made to feel like she was this neurotic, pushy mum. And actually she was right. And if she was believed and I was believed as the narrator of my own experience, because nobody else knows, then actually my life could have been hugely, hugely different.
How many surgeries and diagnoses have you had since 11?
So I've had 2 surgeries. I do still have endometriosis remaining on multiple organs. So I'm kind of trying to figure out what to do there now. But in terms of other diagnoses, I describe it as the day I came off the pill, an inflammation nuclear bomb went off in my body.
I can feel
and
it.
it just, everything kind of...
just hits you like a front door, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was like being hit by a train of stuff.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I've now got so many diagnoses and investigations happening. But it's, to be honest, it's just all a bit overwhelming.
I feel that.
I feel like so many women you meet were just put on the pill.
Yeah.
Like that was the answer for everything.
But again, that's what they were taught.
Yeah, is
That's
that
what's in their toolbox.
That is what they're taught, yeah.
Yeah.
They're told that's the first line of treatment.
Like everyone you speak to, like our age group as well, like so many people you speak to have been on the pill for like 10 plus years, and that was just...
And we
this
don't
will solve
even
all these
know
problems.
the effects of being on it. I do not wish to demonise the pill, because for some people it is fantastic.
Yeah.
For contraception, through my uni
Yeah.
years, loved it. But, you know,
But
for
it's
some
not a
people with
blanket
endo,
response.
It's
like,
not a treatment for endometriosis, because it will still grow underneath it.
But that's the thing for me. I have so many messages from people now, and again, it's quite hard to give the answer, because it's like I am not a medical professional, but I'll only give you an answer based on my experience.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, every pill known to man I was on, every form of hormonal thing I was given, the rod, everything to try and like sort myself out. I came off the pill, like you mentioned, hormones, whoosh, I was hell of a mess. Now, since my endo diagnosis, I've been placed on Dynagest, but I'm only on that because of exercise. So I'm not on Dynagest, I cannot maximally exert. I still have issues now and again, but if I wasn't on it, I could not reach... If I reached that exertional threshold, I would flare drastically. So that's the only reason why I ended up going on a form of medication. One, because the feedback I had, it would slow your regrowth, but mostly because it would control my flare-ups.
Yeah.
And I think when people go on the pill, they think, oh, I'm fine and I'm fixed. And I'm like, no, it's just a mask, because as soon as you come off it,
it's symptom
hits
management
you.
for some.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't solve the problem,
No.
because it just masks it. So then when you do come off it, you realise there is still something wrong. It's just a management thing to try get you
and
through
that's where
lifestyle.
informed consent comes in. You need to be told that, whereas people are still being told actually it's a cure.
Yeah.
And that's really, really dangerous. And we don't know the long-term implications of being on these artificial hormones for such a long time.
Yeah.
You know, we simply don't know.
And a lot of people are effectively children when they first go on it.
I was
growing up.
Yeah.
Don't
I was
on
like
the pill.
I was like 12.
Yeah, it was 11.
12.
Yeah.
12. I think I was 12, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we can talk all day, and I keep looking at the time. I'm like, oh God. But we have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves the next guest a question, but they don't know who they're leaving it for. But there was 2 guests, so they've left 2 questions.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we'll try not to speak for another 4 hours on it, but I know we could. But one of the first questions is, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ooh.
Write another book, Jen, or what?
Yeah, I would like to do some more books.
Cool.
I would actually as well like to see some policy change and some institutional change as well. So I'd like to think that we're actually...
Jen, the politician.
I can see that. I can totally see you in Parliament.
PM, just go for the top, why not? But yeah,
I'll hold
I
the
would
sign
like to
saying,
be
go
doing
Jen.
something there. Yeah, let's do it. So yeah, why not? Aim big.
Yeah, 100%. 5 years time for me, like this is going against the grain, but I just want a peaceful life. I want to just be content. I want to just live within my means, and just that's the one reason for like moving to the Gower. It's peaceful, and I want to lean into that. And that, you know, it's really hard going back to social media, because I'm like what you said earlier. I'm like, oh, I should be doing more. I should be doing more. But I'm going to lean into.
We're going to do less.
I'm going to do less.
Nice. We like that.
Era.
Yes.
Yeah. The second question is, what's the biggest risk you've ever taken? Moving to the Gower.
Say having my hysterectomy. Because I had no idea how that was going to impact stuff. And I always said that I didn't know if I wanted children, but I just hadn't decided. And so I always thought I would have the choice. And so it was a bit of a risk for me. But I was just in so much pain, that it didn't even feel like a choice. But it's paid off. So I don't regret it. I would do it again tomorrow. But yeah, I'd say that was probably quite a big risk.
I said around fertility when I found out after my surgery that I was infertile at that stage. I said, I'm not in any way, shape or form ready or even thinking about having children, but I don't think as a woman that choice should be taken away from you. Like, I feel like it should be my choice whether I want children or not. So then at that stage, I was like 25, 26 when I found out. It floored me, because I was like, I'm just overwhelmed, because don't want them I don't want to be like 30 odd past that when I want children, but it's the thought that choice has been taken away from me.
Yeah,
That's
and I
the
think as a
scary
Western
part.
woman, we
Yeah.
don't ever even think that's going to happen, that it will have to become a choice.
Yeah.
And to have that choice taken away, it floored me for about a year, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like, obviously not consistently, but the first Mother's Day, the first Father's Day, I felt guilt. Then at Christmas, like, my niece was, super cute, and like Halloween stuff. And yeah, it floored me for a long time. And even though I don't regret it. So it's like that weird dichotomy of doing the right thing for me, but at the same time, it still came with all of this stuff. So yeah, that was probably my risk.
Yeah, for me, I think it was, leaving a really well-paid job to pursue my passion, to help women. I was like, but the thing that I just found comfort in, and this is what I say to a lot of people, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't work out, and I go back, or I do something different. I think sometimes fear holds us back from just giving something a go. And I'm always asking myself that question, because the mind will make you think, like, always the worst case scenario, and I'm like, actually, what is the worst case scenario? And like you, I'm just grateful that I've done it.
I can definitely emphasize that, because I literally made a decision recently to leave rugby a lot sooner than planned, purely based on my mental health, my well-being, and my physical health. And again, like you mentioned, your mind is thinking, oh, should you be doing this? This is going against the stereotypical, like, this is cool, so you should stay here. And I'm like, but this is not aligning with me. This is not benefiting me mentally and physically. And like you said, stepping away, what's the worst thing can happen? I could step away and be like, oh, okay, I made the wrong decision, or could go back. But then I think when you making that decision, it just needs time. And then you're like, now I'm like, this is what healthiness feels like. I feel great. Well, not great when you've got endo, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So I think it's scary, but I think when you're scared, that's normally the decision that you should be making, because you're saying fear is a big one.
Have you noticed that all three of us answered something that is against what a stereotypical woman's life should, in inverted commas, be? So you were achieving, and you were like, no, I'm taking a step away from that to focus on my personal health. You were in, like, a successful career. Again, you took a step away from that. I took a step away from that ideal of a fertile woman. All three of our answers were how we're going to choose to not be that stereotype.
How you take down the patriarchy, right?
Yeah. Strong woman. Thank you so much. It's been such an insightful episode. Well, we've both learned.
Yeah, I've learned
quite a lot already. And like I said, I feel like we could literally chat forever, because there's so many questions still in my head. But thank you so much for your time. Rooting for you in your new book.
Thank you.
I was going to say that maybe we should buy it for the men in our life as well.
Yes.
So more men can become educated.
So and request it in your libraries, guys. It's the best thing to do. Go into your library and say, I want to. Yeah.
In schools. Even in schools. It should be in schools.
Yeah, we're hopefully trying to get it into all medical schools as well. So like the doctors will hopefully start getting it.
So good.
But thank you so much. Love meeting people that are just all about empowering different people, but women specifically, and then from your own experiences in life, trying to just make the world a better place.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. And remember to keep saying it how it is.